Before you change the channel, before you scroll away, listen with the ears of your soul, because this message is not for the curious, it is not for the crowd, it is not for those who want comfort without cost. This message is for the woman who has cried alone at night while everyone else thought she was strong. This message is for the woman who has felt a weight she could not explain, a pressure she could not escape, a pain she could not share without being misunderstood. This message is for the woman who has whispered to God, "Why me?" and heard silence, yet still woke up the next morning with faith burning quietly inside her. If you are that woman, do not move, because what you are feeling is not weakness, it is evidence, and what you have endured is not punishment, it is preparation. There are pains in this world that are common to all people, but there are pains that only God's chosen woman will ever feel. They are not visible on the outside, they are not written on the face, and they are rarely understood by those around her. These pains do not come because she is wrong, they come because she is marked. They do not arrive to destroy her, they arrive to define her. And the tragedy is that many chosen women spend years trying to escape the very pains that are shaping them into what God has already decided they will become. The first pain is the pain of isolation that appears even in crowded rooms. God's chosen woman can be surrounded by people who laugh, talk, and celebrate, yet inside she feels alone. This is not because she is antisocial, difficult, or broken. It is because her spirit does not resonate with shallow conversations or empty connections. God has placed a depth inside her that most people do not know how to reach. So she sits quietly, observing, listening, discerning, feeling out of place, not because she lacks value, but because she carries too much value to be everywhere. God often separates before He elevates, and isolation is the classroom where He teaches her to hear His voice without distraction. This pain hurts because humans are wired for connection, yet God sometimes withdraws familiar voices so His voice becomes unmistakable. She wonders why friendships fade without explanation, why people drift away when she needs them most, why she outgrows environments she once prayed to belong to. This pain cuts deep because it feels like rejection, but it is actually redirection. God is protecting her from attachments that would dilute her purpose. The loneliness is not a sign that God has left her. It is a sign that God is drawing her closer, teaching her to find her identity, comfort, and affirmation in Him alone. Many women beg God to remove this pain, not realizing that if He did, they would lose the clarity, strength, and spiritual authority that only solitude can produce. The second pain is the pain of being misunderstood, even when her intentions are pure. God's chosen woman is often judged harshly, labeled unfairly, and misinterpreted repeatedly. She speaks with sincerity, yet her words are twisted. She sets boundaries, and she is called cold. She stands firm, and she is called arrogant. She chooses silence, and she is called distant. This pain is exhausting because no matter how much she explains herself, she feels unseen and unheard. But God allows this pain because He is teaching her a dangerous lesson. Not everyone needs to understand you for God to use you. Misunderstanding strips away the desire for human approval. It teaches her to stand confidently in truth, even when applause is absent. God knows that if she relied on people's validation, she would compromise when pressure comes. So He allows her character to be questioned while He refines her integrity. This pain teaches her to trust God's judgment over public opinion. When she finally stops defending herself and starts resting in God's approval, she steps into a level of peace that cannot be shaken by rumors, criticism, or rejection. The third pain is the pain of delayed fulfillment, the ache of promises that seem slow to manifest. God's chosen woman often carries visions in her heart long before she sees results in her hands. She feels called to more, senses a greater assignment, and yet watches doors remain closed while others advance. This pain is subtle but heavy because it creates tension between faith and frustration. She believes God, yet she struggles with the waiting. She prays, works, prepares, and still hears, "Not yet." This delay is not denial. God delays because He is aligning timing, character, and capacity. He knows that premature fulfillment would crush her instead of crown her. So He stretches her patience, strengthens her discipline, and deepens her dependence on Him. The pain of waiting purifies motives. It separates ambition from obedience. It ensures that when the promise arrives, she will not idolize it because she has already learned to survive without it. God would rather have her ready than rushed, refined than recognized. The fourth pain is the pain of emotional intensity that others cannot handle. God's chosen woman often feels deeply. She loves deeply, grieves deeply, hopes deeply, and cares deeply. This emotional depth is a gift, but it becomes a burden when the world around her is shallow. She is told she is too sensitive, too intense, too serious, too much. But God did not create her depth by accident. He placed it there because she is meant to carry weight that others would drop. This pain teaches her discernment. She learns not everyone deserves access to her heart. She learns to guard her emotional energy and pour it where God directs. Her depth allows her to intercede, to empathize, to perceive what others miss. It is through this pain that God sharpens her spiritual sensitivity. When she stops apologizing for how deeply she feels and starts offering those emotions back to God, her pain becomes power. Her tears become prayers. Her emotions become instruments of divine insight. The fifth pain is the pain of spiritual warfare that manifests internally before it shows externally. God's chosen woman often battles thoughts, fears, doubts, and heaviness that seem to come without reason. She may wake up feeling burdened without understanding why. She may feel resistance when she tries to pray, focus, or move forward. This pain is confusing because it does not always have a visible cause. But God allows this internal pressure because she is positioned on a spiritual battlefield. This pain is not madness, it is awareness. God is sharpening her discernment, training her to recognize spiritual resistance and respond with faith rather than fear. Through this pain, she learns to lean into God when everything inside her wants to withdraw. She learns that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the refusal to surrender to it. God builds warriors in hidden places, and the battles she fights internally are preparing her to stand firm when greater responsibility is placed upon her. The sixth pain is the pain of transformation, the grief of shedding old versions of herself. God's chosen woman often mourns who she used to be while becoming who she is meant to be. She outgrows habits, desires, relationships, and even dreams that once defined her. This pain feels like loss because it is loss. Growth requires funerals. You cannot rise without leaving something behind. God allows this pain because transformation is never comfortable. It requires surrender. It demands trust. It asks her to walk forward without fully recognizing herself. But in this discomfort, God is rebuilding her identity on a foundation that cannot be shaken. She becomes less reactive, more discerning, less dependent on approval, more anchored in truth. The pain of transformation is the final proof that God is actively working, reshaping her for a future that requires a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of herself. What ties all these pains together is not suffering for suffering's sake, but purpose. God does not waste pain. Every tear carries instruction. Every delay carries intention. Every misunderstanding carries refinement. The chosen woman is not chosen because she is perfect. She is chosen because she is willing to be shaped. God places heavy assignments on women who can carry weight without losing their faith. If you feel these pains, do not curse them. Do not numb them. Do not run from them. Bring them to God honestly, without performance, without pretense. Speak to Him in the raw language of your heart. He is not intimidated by your questions or offended by your tears. He is near to the woman who feels deeply and trusts anyway. There will come a day when you look back and realize that the loneliness taught you independence, the misunderstanding taught you confidence, the delay taught you patience, the emotional depth taught you wisdom, the internal battles taught you authority, and the transformation taught you surrender. On that day, you will understand that what you once called pain was actually preparation, and what you once begged God to remove was the very thing that qualified you to stand where others could not. God is not finished with you. The pressure you feel is not the end, it is the shaping. The fire you endure is not destruction, it is purification. The path you walk is narrow because it leads somewhere specific. And even when no one else sees what God is doing in you, He sees it clearly. He sustains it faithfully, and He will reveal it at the appointed time. There is a moment that comes in the life of God's chosen woman when she realizes that her pain has made her fluent in silence. She no longer rushes to explain herself. She no longer panics when things fall apart. She no longer begs to be understood. This is not because she has become cold, but because God has trained her to listen more than she speaks, to watch more than she reacts, and to trust more than she fears. Silence becomes her strength, because God often works loudest in the quiet places. While others need noise to feel alive, she has learned to find God in stillness, and that stillness sharpens her spirit like a blade. God's Cho. Zen woman also carries the pain of responsibility long before authority arrives. She feels accountable for things she has not yet been given. She senses consequences before actions unfold. This pain makes her cautious in a reckless world. It makes her disciplined where others are careless. She is often called serious, intense, or overly thoughtful, but what they call overthinking is actually spiritual foresight. God trains leaders by giving them weight before giving them visibility. That inner sense of responsibility is God teaching her stewardship before promotion. Because power without maturity destroys, but power shaped by reverence sustains. Another hidden pain she carries is the discomfort of being internally rich while externally restrained. She has ideas, insights, creativity, and vision, yet God holds her back from releasing everything at once. This restraint is painful because it feels like being full but unable to pour out. But God knows timing is everything. He protects her ideas until the environment is ready to receive them. He guards her influence until her character is unshakable. What feels like suppression is actually preservation. God is teaching her that not everything revealed to her is meant to be shared immediately, and wisdom knows when to speak and when to store. There are moments when she questions her own softness in a harsh world. She wonders why God gave her compassion when cruelty seems more rewarded. This pain arises when kindness is taken for weakness and generosity is exploited. But God does not regret the tenderness He placed in her. He uses it as a mirror that exposes hardness in others. Her compassion is not a flaw, it is a weapon against indifference. God uses her gentleness to disarm hearts, her patience to calm storms, and her mercy to interrupt cycles of bitterness. In a world addicted to force, God still wins battles through G. God's chosen woman also experiences the pain of outgrowing places before she is ready to leave them. She feels restless even when nothing is wrong. Familiar routines begin to feel restrictive. Comfort starts to feel heavy. This pain creates confusion because she cannot explain why what once fit no longer does. But growth always disrupts comfort. God stirs dissatisfaction not to torment her, but to move her. When she feels unsettled, it is often because God is shifting her internally before He moves her externally. He never relocates the body before He repositions the heart. There is also a unique pain in being strong for others while privately needing strength herself. God's chosen woman is often the one others lean on, seek advice from, or draw comfort from. She gives wisdom effortlessly because she has paid for it with experience. Yet there are seasons when she feels empty and wonders who will pour into her. This pain teaches her that God Himself is her primary source. People may benefit from her overflow, but God alone replenishes her well. When she learns to retreat into God instead of expecting people to rescue her, she discovers a strength that is not dependent on reciprocity. She also carries the pain of being ahead of her time. She sees shifts coming before they arrive. She feels changes forming before they are visible. This can make her feel impatient or misunderstood because others are not ready for what she already perceives. But God reveals things early to those He trusts. He gives vision ahead of manifestation so preparation can occur. The pain of waiting for others to catch up teaches her humility and patience. It reminds her that revelation does not equal readiness, and insight must be paired with restraint. God's chosen woman is often tested in areas where she is strongest. Her faith is tested by silence. Her patience is tested by delay. Her integrity is tested by opportunity. Her loyalty is tested by isolation. This pain feels unfair because it targets her strengths, not her weaknesses. But God refines gold by fire, not dirt. He tests what is valuable because it has the capacity to carry more. Each test stretches her without breaking her, proving that what God has placed inside her is resilient, enduring, and trustworthy. There will be moments when she feels invisible, when her obedience goes unnoticed and her sacrifices seem unrewarded. This pain is sharp because it challenges her motivation, but God sees what others overlook. He records faithfulness that never makes headlines. He honors consistency that never receives applause. The chosen woman learns that being seen by God is greater than being celebrated by people. In time, what is done in hidden places becomes the foundation for public trust, because God elevates those who serve without needing recognition. As she continues to walk this path, her pain reshapes her prayers. She no longer prays shallow prayers for comfort alone. She prays for alignment, clarity, and endurance. She asks God to do what is necessary, not what is easy. Her prayers carry authority because they are born from surrender, not desperation. God listens closely to prayers that come from a heart that trusts Him even when outcomes are uncertain. Eventually, she realizes that her life itself is a message. Her resilience speaks, her peace speaks, her boundaries speak, her refusal to become bitter speaks. God uses her existence as proof that faith can endure pressure, that obedience can survive delay, and that trust can remain intact through uncertainty. Without preaching, without explaining, without forcing belief, her life becomes evidence of God's sustaining power, there comes a sacred shift when God's chosen woman stops asking why the pain came and starts asking what the pain came to teach. In that moment, she is no longer a victim of circumstances, but a student of divine intention. She understands that God does not explain himself to satisfy curiosity. He reveals himself to build conviction. The questions that once tormented her now mature into discernment. She no longer needs everything to make sense. She needs it to make her stronger, wiser, and more aligned with God's will. God often places his chosen woman in seasons where obedience costs more than rebellion would. She watches others take shortcuts and appear to prosper while she is required to walk the long road of integrity. This pain is sharp because it feels like righteousness is unrewarded. But God is not impressed by speed. He is committed to sustainability. He allows her to watch counterfeit success rise quickly, so she will never envy what cannot endure. What God builds through her will last because it is rooted in truth, not convenience. Another quiet pain she carries is the awareness of spiritual imbalance around her. She senses when environments are unhealthy, when intentions are impure, when paths are misaligned. This awareness can feel burdensome because ignorance looks easier, but God did not give her perception to torment her. He gave it to protect her. Discernment is a form of mercy. It keeps her from entanglements that would delay her destiny. While others learn through regret, she learns through revelation, and that alone saves her years of unnecessary pain. There are moments when she feels the ache of self-restraint. She knows she could respond, confront, expose, or defend herself, but God restrains her spirit. This restraint hurts because silence feels like surrender, but God teaches her that silence is sometimes authority in its purest form. When she refuses to react impulsively, she denies chaos access to her peace. God fights battles she refuses to engage in, and he vindicates what she entrusts to him. Her restraint is not weakness, it is evidence that she trusts God to be just. God's chosen woman also experiences the pain of carrying hope in environments addicted to despair. She believes when others mock belief. She persists when others give up. This pain isolates her because faith can be lonely among the cynical. But God uses her hope as a lifeline. Her optimism is not denial, it is alignment with divine possibility. God plants hope in her so it can grow in places where it seems impossible. She becomes a living contradiction to hopelessness, not by argument, but by endurance. There is a refining pain that comes when God removes distractions she once enjoyed. Things that used to satisfy her no longer do. Entertainment feels empty. Noise feels draining. This discomfort is God sharpening her appetite. He is teaching her to crave substance over stimulation. As her desires shift, so does her direction. God does not strip joy, He upgrades it. He replaces temporary pleasure with lasting peace. The pain of losing old comforts makes room for deeper fulfillment. She also feels the weight of accountability even when no one is watching. God's chosen woman cannot live carelessly because conviction governs her conscience. This pain is internal, quiet, and constant. It keeps her awake at night, checking her intentions, purifying her motives. While others need consequences to change, she needs only conviction. God has written His law on her heart, and that internal compass keeps her aligned when external rules fail. Sometimes she grieves the version of herself that trusted too easily. loved without boundaries, gave without wisdom. This grief is not regret, it is maturity. God allows her to feel this pain so she does not repeat old cycles. Wisdom always costs something. The innocence she lost was exchanged for discernment and dissa. It meant is a greater protection than naivete ever was. God does not waste the past. He redeems it by extracting wisdom from wounds. As time passes, she realizes that her pain has recalibrated her priorities. What once mattered deeply now feels insignificant. Approval fades, status loses shine. What remains is a hunger for alignment with God. This hunger simplifies her life. She no longer chases everything, she chooses intentionally. God uses pain to clarify purpose. It removes distractions so destiny can come into focus. There are days when she feels tired, not from doing too much, but from carrying too much unseen responsibility. This fatigue is spiritual, emotional, and mental. But God meets her in this weariness, not with condemnation, but with renewal. He teaches her to rest without guilt, to pause without fear, to trust without controlling outcomes. Rest becomes an act of faith. By resting, she declares that God is still working even when she stops. Eventually, she understands that her pain has given her credibility in the spiritual realm. She speaks with authority, not because she studied theory, but because she survived process. Her words carry weight because they have been tested by fire. God entrusts influence to those who have endured quietly. He knows that those who have suffered with humility will lead with compassion, not arrogance. She now walks with a calm certainty, not because life is easy, but because God is faithful. She no longer measures success by speed or applause. She measures it by obedience and peace. The pain that once confused her now confirms her calling. She sees clearly that every tear shaped her vision. Every delay strengthened her foundation, and every loss redirected her steps. There's a deeper layer of pain that emerges when God's chosen woman realizes she can no longer pretend. Masks become heavy. Performing strength becomes exile. God begins to strip away the need to appear fine when she is being refined. This pain is uncomfortable because vulnerability feels risky, yet God invites her into honesty so healing can be complete. He does not ask her to impress Him. He asks her to trust Him. When she stops hiding her weakness before God, she discovers that surrender is not collapse, it is access. God also leads her through seasons where clarity comes without comfort. She knows what God is asking of her, but the path feels lonely and demanding. This pain is intense because obedience becomes a conscious choice, not an emotional response. She moves forward without applause, without reassurance, without immediate results. But God is training her to walk by conviction rather than feeling. Faith that depends on emotion collapses under pressure, but faith anchored in trust stands firm when everything shakes. There's a piercing pain when God closes doors she prayed would open. She does not understand why opportunities vanish or relationships dissolve just when they seem promising. This pain challenges her trust. But God sees what she cannot. He closes doors not to punish her, but to protect her from paths that would drain her spirit or delay her assignment. Rejection becomes redirection when she learns that God's refusal is often His mercy. God's chosen woman also experiences the discomfort of internal growth that others do not notice. Her mind expands, her values deepen, her discernment sharpens, yet outwardly nothing seems to change. This hidden growth feels frustrating because progress appears invisible. But God develops roots before He reveals fruit. What is happening beneath the surface is far more important than what is visible. When the time comes, her stability will shock those who underestimated her quiet season. She also feels the pain of being unable to return to who she once was, Eve. And when life pressures tempt her to revert, something inside her resists. Old patterns feel foreign. Old comforts feel empty. This pain confirms that God has already moved her forward internally. Growth creates distance, and distance creates grief, but it also creates freedom. God never allows true transformation to be reversible. There are moments when her faith is tested not by adversity but by abundance. When things begin to improve, she feels the subtle pressure to rely on herself instead of God. This pain is subtle, but God exposes it quickly. He reminds her that dependence on Him is not for crisis only, it is for every season. Prosperity without humility leads to drift, but God anchors her heart, so success never replaces reverence. God's chosen woman also carries the pain of loving deeply without being possessed by attachment. She learns to release people without bitterness and to bless without holding on. This detachment hurts because it contradicts human instinct. But God teaches her that love does not require control. Trusting God with people is as important as trusting Him with outcomes. She learns that what is truly meant to remain will not be lost by obedience. There is a sacred pain when God corrects her privately. Conviction settles gently but firmly on her heart. No one else sees it, yet it shapes her deeply. This pain is evidence of intimacy. God corrects those He draws close. His discipline is not harsh, it is precise. It keeps her aligned before misalignment becomes destruction. She learns to welcome correction as protection. As her journey continues, her pain refines her discernment between urgency and importance. She no longer reacts to every demand or crisis. She chooses what aligns with God's direction. This discernment costs her popularity, but it preserves her peace. God teaches her that saying no is sometimes the highest form of obedience. She begins to recognize that her pain has carved capacity within her. Capacity to listen without judging. Capacity to stand without arrogance. Capacity to wait without despair. God has expanded her internally so she can carry influence externally without being corrupted by it. What once overwhelmed her now strengthens her. There are moments when she senses God's nearness most intensely, not in celebration, but in endurance. When she continues despite fatigue, disappointment, or uncertainty, God meets her there. His presence sustains her more than answers ever could. She learns that faith is not about understanding every step, but about trusting the one who directs them. Her pain also teaches her the discipline of gratitude in unfinished seasons. She thanks God not only for what has manifested, but for what is still forming. Gratitude shifts her perspective from lack to expectation. It reminds her that God's work is ongoing, not delayed. Praise becomes her posture, even when circumstances remain unchanged. Over time, she realizes that her pain has trained her to recognize counterfeit peace. She no longer accepts calm that requires compromise. She chooses alignment over ease. God teaches her that true peace does not come from avoiding conflict, but from obeying truth. This wisdom guards her future decisions. She stands now with a quiet authority that cannot be imitated. It is not loud, it is not forced, it is earned. Her presence carries weight because her faith has been tested and proven. God entrusts her with influence because she understands the cost of obedience. There is a profound and sacred pain that arises when God's chosen woman realizes that she cannot control the timing of her own life. She has prayed, planned, and prepared, yet the outcome does not follow her schedule. This waiting is not idleness, it is divine preparation. God is orchestrating circumstances behind the scenes, aligning people, opportunities, and environments according to His perfect wisdom. The tension she feels is a spiritual tug-of-war, a constant reminder that her hands are not the hands of providence, but instruments of obedience. The longer she waits, the deeper her trust grows, and the more her spirit learns to rest in certainty rather than speculation. Another piercing layer of pain is the experience of seeing others prosper with lesser effort while she endures laborious preparation. Envy may whisper, but God's chosen woman learns to silence it with perspective. She recognizes that temporary advantage often leads to instability, and rapid ascent without divine alignment results in collapse. God teaches her that visible reward is not proof of blessing, and hidden struggle is not proof of abandonment. The pain of watching others' fleeting success is transformed into insight. She is building an inheritance that no one else can see, yet no force on earth can take away. There is also the quiet agony of internal restlessness. Even in moments of apparent stability, she feels a pull toward higher purpose. Routine becomes suffocating. Familiarity feels small. This is the pain of destiny stirring within her, whispering that comfort cannot contain her calling. God allows this restlessness to awaken courage. It teaches her to embrace the discomfort of growth, to chase what matters, and to release what no longer serves her alignment with divine intent. The pain is subtle, but its result is monumental, an unshakable clarity about what is worth pursuing. She also experiences the pain of carrying wisdom that others are not ready to receive. God's chosen woman often sees truths that are invisible to those around her. She understands consequences before they manifest, perceives dangers that others overlook, and senses opportunities before they appear. This insight can isolate her because perception without experience is often dismissed. But God teaches her patience, guiding her to release revelation at the right moment. Timing is everything, and wisdom without divine orchestration is wasted. Her pain of unshared insight is actually preparation for strategic impact in the season to come. The chosen woman feels deeply the weight of emotional responsibility. Her empathy stretches across boundaries, absorbing the fears, doubts, and burdens of others. While the world may call her overly sensitive, God uses this capacity as a conduit of divine love and discernment. Her pain is compounded by the fact that this weight is often unseen, yet it fortifies her spirit. She learns to compartmentalize, to intercede in thought and prayer, and to guard her energy so she can serve effectively. God transforms the heaviness into endurance, teaching her that sensitivity is strength when guided by divine purpose. Finally, God's chosen woman feels the weight of legacy in advance. She is conscious that her life, choices, and endurance will impact generations. This awareness is both inspiring and burdensome. It fuels discipline, intentionality, and spiritual vigilance, but it also brings an acute sense of responsibility. Every misstep feels magnified, every compromise feels consequential. God, however, sustains her. He allows her to carry this foresight so she will act with wisdom, temperance, and courage. Her pain is a gift, a refining lens that sharpens her vision for the future. Through all these layers of pain, God's chosen woman emerges. Resilient, disciplined, discerning, and profoundly aware of her dependence on Him. She carries wounds that teach, challenges that instruct, and burdens that purify. The world may misunderstand her, criticize her, or underestimate her, but God sees every tear, every lonely night, every unanswered question, and every moment of endurance is recorded by Him and transformed into preparation for divine revelation, purpose, and authority. Her life becomes living testimony, proof that God's refining hand works tirelessly, invisibly, yet powerfully in the life of the woman He has chosen to lead, to endure, and to manifest His glory. Listen to me carefully. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetry. This is not motivational exaggeration. This is a divine announcement. What you have been calling delay has already been decided as provision. What you have been fearing as lack has already been settled in the unseen. What you have been worrying about late at night, whispering to yourself in silence, wondering how it could ever happen, God has already funded your entire dream life. Not someday, not after you prove yourself, not when conditions improve. It is already done in the realm that controls everything you can see. You must understand this truth deeply, because until you do, you will keep praying like a beggar for what has already been released. God does not give dreams without backing them. God does not plant vision without provision. God does not stir desire without already assigning the supply to fulfill it. When God gives a dream, the funding is not a future event. It is part of the same decision. The moment the dream entered your heart, the resources to accomplish it were already set in motion. You are not chasing money. You are not chasing opportunity. You are not chasing approval. You are simply walking toward what God has already authorized. Many people misunderstand how God works because they look with natural eyes. They measure their future by their current bank account. They measure their calling by their current connections. They measure their destiny by their present limitations. But God never starts with what you see. God starts with what He has spoken. And once God speaks, the resources must obey. Heaven does not struggle to fund divine assignments. Heaven does not debate whether your dream is realistic. Heaven responds only to obedience, alignment, and faith. Let me speak to the tired soul listening to this. The one who has almost buried their dream because life became heavy. You did not imagine that vision. You did not create that hunger on your own, that desire to build, to create, to serve, to expand, to rise. That came from God. And God does not tease His children with impossible visions. God does not mock you with dreams you were never meant to fulfill. If the dream is alive in you, the funding already exists beyond you. There is a dangerous lie that has kept many faithful people small, the lie that you must first see resources before you move. That lie paralyzes destiny. God never asked you to see provision before obedience. God asked you to move before the door appears. When you take the step, the ground forms under your feet. When you speak, the supply responds. When you obey, the backing reveals itself. This is not reckless faith. This is how divine systems operate. Some of you have been faithful in secret, consistent without applause, disciplined without recognition, obedient without reward, and you are wondering if God has forgotten you. Hear this clearly. Silence does not mean absence. Delay does not mean denial. Preparation often feels like neglect until suddenly it reveals itself as precision. God has been aligning people you have never met, opportunities you have never imagined, and resources you have never touched, all to converge at the right moment. Your dream is not late. You are being synchronized. God funds dreams in ways that embarrass logic. He does not always send money first. Sometimes He sends favor. Sometimes He sends ideas. Sometimes He sends wisdom. Sometimes He removes distractions. Sometimes He closes doors that would have drained you. Sometimes He allows pressure so you develop strength to carry what is coming. You thought the struggle meant you were unqualified. In reality, the struggle was training you to manage abundance without losing yourself. You must shift how you define funding. Funding is not just currency, it is capacity, it is clarity, it is courage, it is timing, it is access, it is relationships, it is skill, it is endurance. Many people receive money and still fail because they were never funded internally. God is not reckless with blessing. He builds the vessel before He pours the overflow. What feels like waiting is often reinforcement. Let me say something that may challenge you. If God gave you everything at once, it would crush you. If the full weight of your dream landed on your current mindset, it would overwhelm you. That is why God releases provision progressively while strengthening you personally. You are not behind, you are being fortified. Every delay has been intentional. Every closed door has been protective. Every setback has been strategic. You are not meant to beg systems that God never authorized to support you. When God funds your dream, He does not rely on one source. He becomes the source behind every channel. People may help, institutions may open, opportunities may appear, but your confidence must never rest in them. God can use them, replace them, or bypass them entirely. When your trust is in God alone, no human refusal can stop what has already been approved. Some of you have been afraid to dream again because the last disappointment hurt too deeply. But hear this truth: disappointment does not mean your dream was wrong. It means your timing or method was incomplete. God is not finished because you were hurt. God is not offended by your questions. God is not threatened by your fears. He is waiting for you to trust Him again, not with naive optimism, but with mature faith that understands process. There is a reason your dream keeps returning to you. There is a reason it still stirs your spirit. There is a reason it refuses to die, even when you try to let it go. That persistence is not stubbornness, it is divine imprint. God has marked that vision inside you, and until it is expressed, you will never feel fully satisfied. You can distract yourself, you can settle temporarily, but your spirit knows there is more because God has already invested in it. You must stop apologizing for the size of your vision. You must stop shrinking your language to make others comfortable. Small minds will always criticize large dreams because they cannot see beyond their limitations. But God did not consult public opinion when He called you. He did not ask your critics for permission. He planted the vision knowing exactly what it would cost, and He paid that cost in advance. Faith is not denial of reality, it is alignment with a higher one. Reality says you lack. Faith says God supplies. Reality says you are alone. Faith says God orchestrates. Reality says it is impossible. Faith says God specializes in impossibility. When faith speaks, circumstances must eventually bow. They may resist, they may delay, they may challenge, but they cannot win. Some of you are one decision away from movement, one act of obedience away from momentum, one step away from evidence. Stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness comes from obedience, not comfort. God does not call the confident, He builds confidence through calling. When you move in faith, fear loses authority. When you act despite uncertainty, power activates. Understand this deeply. God funds purpose, not ego. When your dream is aligned with service, growth, contribution, and impact, heaven responds aggressively. When your intention is pure, resources find you. When your motive is aligned, resistance weakens. Examine your heart, refine your reason, and move forward without hesitation. You may not see the full path, but you do not need to. You only need enough light for the next step. God rarely reveals the entire journey because you would either rush ahead or retreat in fear. Instead, He gives daily guidance, daily strength, daily provision. This keeps you dependent, grounded, and focused. Some doors will open suddenly. Some breakthroughs will happen without warning. Some support will come from unexpected places. Do not be shocked when what you prayed for arrives in a form you did not anticipate. God is not limited by your imagination. He often exceeds it. Stay flexible. Stay grateful. Stay obedient. You must also prepare your mindset for increase. Stop thinking like someone who is about to lose. Stop planning for failure. Stop rehearsing disaster. Your words matter. Your expectations matter. Your internal dialogue matters. Speak life over your dream. Speak confidence into your future. Speak gratitude before evidence appears. Gratitude accelerates manifestation. God has been watching how you handle little things, how you manage small responsibilities, how you treat people when no reward is visible. These moments are not insignificant, they are qualifications. Integrity is a form of funding. Discipline is a form of wealth. Consistency is a form of power. You are being evaluated not to disqualify you, but to entrust you with more. Let me remind you of this. God is not late. He is precise. He is never rushed, never panicked, never confused. When the moment is right, everything aligns effortlessly. What felt impossible suddenly feels inevitable. What required strain suddenly flows. That is the signature of divine timing. You are not competing with anyone else's destiny. You are not behind because someone else succeeded faster. God's timeline for you is custom designed. Comparison steals joy and distorts vision. Focus on your assignment. Focus on your growth. Focus on your obedience. Your dream will require courage. It will demand patience. It will stretch your faith. But it will also bring fulfillment that nothing else can replace. Do not trade destiny for comfort. Do not exchange calling for convenience. You were created for more than survival. You were designed for impact. God has already gone ahead of you. He has secured what you will need at each stage. You are not walking into uncertainty. You are walking into alignment. Every step taken in faith activates what was already prepared. Lift your expectation. Strengthen your resolve. Refuse to shrink back. What God has funded cannot be canceled. What God has approved cannot be reversed. What God has initiated must be completed. Your dream is alive because God is faithful. Your future is secure because God is intentional. Your provision is certain because God does not abandon what He begins. Move forward with confidence, knowing that heaven has already invested in you and the unseen support is far greater than anything you could ever calculate. There is a deeper layer to this truth that many overlook, and it must be spoken plainly. God does not merely fund the end of your dream, He funds the entire journey. Every season you must walk through has already been accounted for. The strength you will need when pressure increases, the wisdom required when choices become complex, the discernment needed when opportunities multiply. None of this is accidental. God never sends you into a future unprepared. What you will need tomorrow is already being formed in you today. You may feel stretched right now, but stretching is evidence of expansion. Comfort never enlarges capacity. Ease never develops authority. God stretches you because He sees how much you are about to carry. He strengthens your inner world before He enlarges your outer one. This is why moments of discomfort often precede moments of acceleration. The resistance you feel is not opposition. It is preparation. Understand this clearly. God is not responding to your desperation. He is responding to alignment. When your heart aligns with His purpose, provision responds naturally. You do not need to convince God to bless what He initiated. You do not need to persuade Him to support what He designed. Your responsibility is not to force results, but to remain faithful to the process. There are times when God intentionally withholds visible evidence so your trust deepens. If you only believe when you see, your faith is conditional. But when you trust without proof, your faith matures. Mature faith moves even when emotions are quiet. Mature faith acts even when affirmation is absent. Mature faith obeys even when outcomes are unclear. Some of you are learning the discipline of waiting, and waiting is not inactivity. Waiting is alignment without anxiety. Waiting is obedience without urgency. Waiting is trusting God's timing over your impatience. This kind of waiting refines the soul. It removes entitlement. It strengthens humility. It prepares you to receive blessing without pride. God is teaching you how to carry success without losing integrity. He is shaping your character so your dream does not consume you. Many people reach what they ask for and then collapse under its weight because they were never prepared internally. God will not allow your blessing to become your burden. He is more committed to your wholeness than your speed. Do not mistake slow progress for stagnation. Growth often happens beneath the surface before it becomes visible above it. Roots grow in silence. Foundations are laid unseen. Strength is built quietly. When the structure rises, people will call it sudden, but you will know it was faithful consistency over time. God has also been teaching you discernment. Not every opportunity is a blessing. Not every open door is aligned. Sometimes God says no, not to punish you, but to protect your focus. When your dream is funded by God, you must be selective with your energy. Distraction is one of the greatest threats to destiny. Your discipline is proof that God trusts you. Your restraint is evidence of maturity. Your willingness to wait instead of forcing outcomes shows that your confidence is anchored in God, not in external validation. This posture attracts divine support. There will be moments when fear attempts to speak louder than faith. Fear will question your ability, your worth, your readiness. Do not entertain those voices. Fear is a liar that disguises itself as logic. Faith does not argue with fear. It moves despite it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is obedience in the presence of fear. God has not overlooked your sacrifices. Every unseen act of obedience has been recorded. Every moment you chose integrity over convenience mattered. Every time you trusted God instead of compromising your values, it strengthened your future. Nothing done in faith is ever wasted. There is also a divine exchange happening in your life. God is removing old mindsets that cannot survive where He is taking you. Some relationships may feel distant. Some habits may no longer satisfy you. Some environments may feel uncomfortable. This is not loss. It is transition. You are shedding what cannot accompany you into your next season. God funds transformation before manifestation. He reshapes your thinking so you can steward increase wisely. If your mindset remains small, abundance becomes dangerous. God expands your vision gradually so your growth is sustainable. You must also recognize that your dream is not just about you. God's dreams always extend beyond personal gain. They bless others. They bring restoration. They create impact. When your vision aligns with serve, resistance weakens and support multiplies. God blesses generosity of spirit. There will be moments when you must speak to your own soul. When discouragement whispers, remind yourself of what God has already carried you through. When doubt rises, recall how far you have come. Memory is a weapon against despair. Gratitude anchors hope. God is also teaching you patience with people. Not everyone will understand your process. Not everyone will celebrate your obedience. Some will misunderstand your silence, your restraint, your faith. Release the need to be understood. Your validation does not come from consensus, it comes from obedience. The pace of your progress is intentional. God knows exactly when to accelerate and when to slow you down. Rushing ahead creates mistakes. Lagging behind creates frustration. Trust the rhythm God has set for you. It is calibrated to your growth. When breakthrough comes, remain humble. Humility preserves blessing. Gratitude sustains increase. Acknowledge God in every victory. Remember the lessons learned in the waiting. Success without humility leads to isolation. Success with gratitude leads to longevity. Your dream will require resilience. There will be days when energy feels low and motivation fades. Those are the days discipline carries you. Commitment matters more than emotion. Faithfulness in routine builds momentum over time. God is not intimidated by the complexity of your vision. He understands every detail. He anticipates every challenge. Nothing surprises him. When obstacles arise, do not panic. Obstacles are often indicators that progress is occurring. You must also learn to rest. Rest is not laziness, it is trust. When you rest, you acknowledge that God works even when you pause. Overworking is often rooted in fear. Rest is rooted in confidence that God is in control. Your dream life is funded not only financially, but spiritually and emotionally. God is strengthening your inner resilience, so external pressure does not overwhelm you. He is anchoring you so success does not distort your identity. There will come a moment when things shift quickly. Momentum will build. Doors will open in succession. Clarity will sharpen. Confidence will rise. When that moment arrives, stay grounded. Move forward without arrogance. Progress with humility. Remember this always. God is faithful to complete what He begins. He does not abandon His investments. He does not withdraw support halfway. He does not forget His promises. What He starts, He finishes. There is a sacred discipline God is cultivating within you right now, and it is the discipline of trust when outcomes are not immediate. Trust is not passive, it is an active surrender of control. When you release control, you make room for divine precision. God does not improvise, He orchestrates. Every pause has a purpose, every reroute has intention, every unseen delay is aligning unseen forces on your behalf. You must recognize that God often answers prayers in layers. What you ask for may not arrive all at once because wisdom is released progressively. God reveals only what you are ready to steward. If He unveiled everything at once, fear would overwhelm faith. Instead, He gives you just enough clarity to keep moving, just enough assurance to keep believing, just enough strength to keep standing. Some of you are being taught to walk by conviction rather than emotion. Emotions fluctuate, but conviction anchors. When conviction leads, you do not abandon your assignment when feelings change. You remain steady when praise is absent and criticism is loud. God develops conviction because conviction sustains purpose. God is also refining how you listen. Not every voice deserves your attention. Noise can sound urgent, but urgency is not always divine. God speaks with clarity, not chaos. When you learn to recognize His direction, confusion loses influence. Peace becomes your compass. There is a divine economy at work in your life, one that operates beyond human systems. When God funds a dream, He does not rely on trends, markets, or approval. He bypasses limitations and establishes provision in ways that cannot be traced to chance. This is why some of your breakthroughs will confuse observers. They will not understand how it happened. because it was not designed to make sense. It was designed to demonstrate faithfulness. God is also teaching you to release bitterness. Resentment drains energy needed for progress. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is freedom. When you forgive, you cut ties with emotional debt and reclaim your focus. God cannot advance you while your heart is anchored to past wounds. Healing is part of preparation. There will be moments when you must choose obedience over comfort. Comfort keeps you safe. Obedience makes you effective. God does not call you to a life of ease, but to a life of impact. Impact requires courage. Courage grows when you act despite uncertainty. Do not underestimate the power of small acts done consistently. Faithfulness in routine often produces greater results than sporadic intensity. God honors persistence. When you show up even when motivation is low, you demonstrate maturity. Maturity attracts responsibility. You may notice that your tolerance for shallow pursuits has decreased. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. God is sharpening your focus. When your purpose becomes clear, distractions lose appeal. Simplicity becomes strength. God is also building resilience in you, so criticism does not derail you. Opinions will come and go. Praise will fluctuate. Critique will arise. None of it defines you. God alone defines your worth and direction. When you internalize His truth, external noise loses authority. There are lessons God teaches only through endurance. Shortcuts may promise speed, but they rob depth. God values depth because depth sustains longevity. When trials test your resolve, they also increase your capacity to carry responsibility. You are learning to partner with God rather than pressure Him. Partnership requires trust. Pressure assumes doubt. When you align with God's pace, you move with confidence rather than anxiety. Anxiety often comes from trying to control outcomes that belong to God. Your dream is not competing with time, it is unfolding within it. Time serves purpose, not the other way around. When God decides the moment is right, time accelerates. What took years to prepare may manifest quickly when alignment is complete. God is also teaching you gratitude before manifestation. Gratitude acknowledges that provision already exists. When you give thanks early, you activate faith. Gratitude shifts focus from what is missing to what is assured. There will be seasons when you feel unseen. Those seasons teach you to rely on God's presence rather than recognition. Visibility is not validation. Many powerful transformations occur away from public view. When the time comes, your preparation will speak louder than any announcement. You must guard your inner dialogue. Speak truth to yourself when doubt attempts to dominate. Remind yourself that God does not make mistakes. If He entrusted you with the vision, He also entrusted you with the ability to fulfill it. God is also preparing you for stewardship. Increase requires wisdom. Influence requires humility. Authority requires responsibility. God equips you gradually so you are not overwhelmed by what you receive. There will be moments when you must stand firm in faith, even when circumstances contradict you. Faith is not denial, it is declaration. You declare alignment with what God has spoken over what you see. Your journey will inspire others even before you realize it. Quiet perseverance speaks loudly. Integrity in adversity becomes a testimony. God uses your process as evidence of His faithfulness. As you continue forward, remain teachable. Pride limits growth, humility expands it. God gives insight to those willing to learn. When correction comes, receive it without defensiveness. Correction refines, not diminishes. You are not alone in this journey. God walks with you through uncertainty, strengthens you in weakness, and sustains you when energy fades. His presence is constant even when progress feels slow. When fulfillment arrives, remember the waiting, remember the lessons, remember the growth. Gratitude will keep your heart grounded. Faith will keep your vision clear. There is also a divine reshaping of your courage taking place, and it is subtle but powerful. God is teaching you how to stand without needing permission, how to move without consensus, how to obey without applause. Courage that depends on validation collapses under pressure, but courage rooted in God becomes unshakable. You are learning to stand alone when necessary, not because you are isolated, but because you are anchored. This anchoring is essential for where you are going. God is also refining your sense of responsibility. When dreams are small, accountability feels light. When dreams are large, responsibility becomes sacred. God trained you to honor commitments, to respect process, to finish what you start. Completion is a spiritual principle. God completes what He begins, and He teaches you to do the same. In finishing small tasks faithfully, you are practicing for greater assignments. There will be moments when your faith is tested not by lack, but by choice. Options will appear that seem easier, faster, more comfortable. Not ever. Why shortcut is evil, but many are misaligned. God sharpens your discernment so you recognize when something is good but not right. Choosing what is right over what is easy preserves your destiny. God is also strengthening your patience with yourself. Growth is not linear. Some days you will feel strong, other days uncertain. Do not condemn yourself for human fluctuation. God does not withdraw support because of momentary weakness. He responds to sincerity, humility, and persistence. Progress continues even when emotions waver. You are also being trained to hear God in stillness. Not every instruction comes through intensity. Sometimes guidance comes quietly, gently, without urgency. When you learn to quiet your spirit, clarity emerges. Stillness sharpens perception. Silence strengthens awareness. God's provision often arrives disguised as responsibility. What looks like work is often preparation. What feels heavy may be capacity building. Do not reject what stretches you. Weight builds strength. Pressure produces endurance. God knows exactly how much to place on you without breaking you. There will be seasons when your obedience seems unnoticed. In those moments, remember that God is the ultimate witness. Human recognition is temporary, divine approval is eternal. When your heart is satisfied with God's approval, you are free from insecurity. God also teaches you how to manage success before it arrives. He checks your motives, refines your humility, deepens your gratitude. Success magnifies whatever is already inside. God ensures that when increase comes, it amplifies wisdom rather than weakness. You may feel a growing intolerance for compromise. This is not rigidity, it is clarity. When purpose becomes clear, boundaries become necessary. Boundaries protect focus. Focus accelerates progress. God honors discipline, clarity. There will be times when your faith must outlast your understanding. You will not always know why certain things happen the way they do. Trust does not require full explanation. Trust requires confidence in God's character. God does not owe you explanation, but He guarantees purpose. God is also teaching you how to release control over outcomes. Control is often rooted in fear of loss. Faith releases outcomes to God while remaining faithful to action. When you release control, peace replaces tension. Peace is a sign of alignment. Your dream life is funded with divine timing, and timing is sacred. Premature fulfillment can damage purpose. Delayed fulfillment refines it. God knows exactly when you are ready, and when the environment is ready to receive what you carry, there will be days when your strength must come from discipline rather than emotion. Discipline sustains momentum when inspiration fades. God honors discipline because it demonstrates commitment beyond feeling. God also prepares you for influence by teaching you how to listen. Listening deepens wisdom. Listening builds understanding. Influence without listening becomes domination. God values humility because humility preserves connection. You are learning to trust God's methods even when they differ from your expectations. God rarely repeats patterns. He custom designs solutions. What worked for someone else may not work for you. God's plan for you is specific, intentional, and personal. As your confidence grows, guard against pride. Pride isolates. Humility connects. Humility keeps you teachable. Teachable hearts remain adaptable. Adaptability sustains relevance. There will be moments when you must act decisively. Indecision drains energy. When God gives clarity, move. Delay out of fear can be disobedience disguised as caution. Bold obedience unlocks momentum. God is also training you to endure silence from others without interpreting as rejection. Silence does not equal disapproval. Often it simply means God is working without announcement. Your dream requires emotional maturity. Emotional maturity allows you to respond rather than react. Reaction is impulsive. Response is intentional. God builds response in you so pressure does not control your behavior. As your journey continues, you will notice a deepening sense of peace. Peace does not mean absence of challenge. It means presence of trust. Peace confirms alignment. God has already measured your capacity. He knows how much you can carry, how far you can go, how strong you can become. He does not miscalculate. Every step is intentional. Remain faithful in what is in front of you. Faithfulness activates favor. Favor opens doors. Doors lead to purpose. Purpose fulfills destiny. What God has established in the unseen is already influencing the seen. Your obedience is not wasted. Your patience is not ignored. Your faith is not misplaced. The funding is secure. The process is purposeful, and the unfolding continues under the authority, wisdom, and faithfulness of God alone. God is also teaching you to celebrate small victories. Gratitude trains the heart to recognize progress. Celebration fuels endurance. When you honor growth, you invite more of it. As your capacity expands, guard your inner life. Noise increases as influence grows. Guarding your inner life preserves clarity. Clarity sustains purpose. God speaks most clearly to those who protect stillness. You are learning to trust God's justice. When wrongs go unanswered, release the need to retaliate. God balances what you cannot. Peace follows those who let go of revenge and choose trust. God is preparing you to steward momentum. Momentum is powerful but fragile. It must be guided by wisdom. When momentum arrives, do not rush ahead of discernment. Pace protects progress. Your faith is becoming quieter but stronger. Loud faith seeks proof. Strong faith walks steadily. This maturity is evidence of growth. God delights in faith that endures without spectacle. Remember that your dream is not an escape from life, it is a contribution to it. God's purpose always adds value. When you serve with sincerity, fulfillment follows naturally. You will continue to encounter moments that test your resolve. In those moments, return to first principles. Trust God, obey clearly, act faithfully. Simplicity anchors complexity. God's provision remains active even when unseen. His guidance remains present even when unheard. His faithfulness remains constant even when unacknowledged. This is the foundation you stand on. As you move forward, remain courageous, remain humble, remain faithful. The path may wind, but the destination is secure. The dream is funded, The process is purposeful, and the unfolding continues under the wisdom, authority, and unfailing faithfulness of God alone. Now hear this with unwavering clarity. Every step you have taken, every moment of obedience, every act of faith has not been in vain. God has already funded your entire dream life, and nothing can thwart what He has ordained. The unseen support, the invisible preparation, the divine orchestration, all of it is moving in your favor, and it will manifest at the perfect moment. Do not shrink back. Do not settle for less. Do not allow doubt, fear, or impatience to dictate your pace. Walk boldly, act faithfully, and trust relentlessly, for God is the source, the provider, and the guarantor of your destiny. Your dreams are not just possible, they are inevitable because God has already invested in them. Stand firm, rise higher, and embrace the fullness of what has already been prepared for you. The life you have envisioned is not a distant hope. It is a divine reality waiting for your faith to meet it. Listen to me right now. This is not another message. This is a moment appointed by God. Something has shifted in the unseen realm, and you can feel it even if you cannot explain it. Your spirit has been restless. Your heart has been pounding with expectation, and deep inside you know that what you have been waiting for is no longer far away. God is moving, not slowly, not cautiously. God is moving with intention, with power, with precision, and your victory is finally here. You did not survive what you survived just to remain where you are. You did not endure sleepless nights, silent tears, hidden battles, and unanswered questions just to stay stuck. God has been arranging, aligning, and preparing, and now the season has changed. There are times when God works quietly, almost invisibly, and there are times when God moves so clearly that even your enemies cannot deny it. You are stepping into one of those moments. What you thought was delay was actually divine preparation. What you thought was rejection was God's protection. What you thought was silence was God building something deeper within you. God never wastes pain. God never ignores faith. God never forgets a promise. Every prayer you whispered when no one was watching, every time you chose trust over fear, every moment you stood firm when everything around you was shaking, God recorded it all, and now the harvest is ready. Some of you have been standing at the edge of breakthrough for so long that disappointment tried to convince you it would never happen. But hear this clearly: delay is not denial. Waiting is not failure. Silence is not absence. God has been moving behind the scenes while you were learning endurance, humility, obedience, and courage. God was strengthening your spirit so that when the victory arrived, it would not crush you but elevate you. Many people ask God for blessings, but they are not ready to carry them. God loves you too much to release victory before your character is ready to sustain it. Right now, God is restoring what was lost. Not just partially, not symbolically, but fully. What you lost in years of struggle, God can restore in a moment. What took years to break, God can rebuild in an instant. Do not measure God's power by human time. God operates outside of limitation. One word from God can overturn decades of hardship. One decision from God can reverse what looked permanent. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are exactly where God intended you to be for this moment of divine intervention. There are forces that tried to stop you. There were voices that tried to discourage you. There were situations designed to drain your faith and make you quit. But look at you, you are still standing. That alone is proof that God has been holding you. You should not have survived what you went through, but you did, because God was guarding you even when you did not realize it. When you were weak, God was strong for you. When you were confused, God was guiding you. When you were tired, God was carrying you. And now the same God who preserved you is about to promote you. Victory does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it comes quietly, like a seed breaking through the soil. But once it emerges, nothing can stop its growth. God is releasing favor over your life that will open doors you did not knock on. God is positioning people who will recognize your value without explanation. God is shifting circumstances that once worked against you to now work for you. What once resisted you will now cooperate with you. This is what happens when God steps in. Do not let your past convince you that your future will be the same. God is not bound by your history. God is not limited by your mistakes. God is not discouraged by your failures. God specializes in turning broken stories into powerful testimonies. You may have fallen, but you were never abandoned. You may have failed, but you were never rejected. God has been watching over you with patience and purpose, waiting for the right time to reveal what was hidden. Right now, God is asking you to lift your expectation. Faith is not passive. Faith is not silent. Faith is an active agreement with God's word. When you believe, you align yourself with divine power. When you trust, you invite God to act. Fear delays what faith accelerates. Doubt weakens what belief strengthens. God responds to faith not because God needs it, but because faith positions you to receive what God has already prepared. Some of you are about to see sudden breakthroughs. Situations that have been stagnant for years will change quickly. Long-standing problems will dissolve faster than you imagine. Financial pressure will lift. Emotional burdens will release. Opportunities will appear where there were none. This is not coincidence. This is divine timing. God knows exactly when to act, and God never acts too early or too late. You must understand this. When God moves you into victory, it is not just for your comfort. It is for your calling. Your victory will speak louder than your words ever could. People who doubted you will be forced to reconsider. People who dismissed you will be amazed. Not so that you can boast, but so that God's power can be made visible through your life. Your life is becoming a living message that God is faithful. Do not shrink back now. Do not lower your standard now. Do not compromise your faith now. You are closer than you think. The pressure you felt was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you. Pressure reveals strength. Fire reveals purity. Storms reveal foundations. And you have proven that your foundation is solid. There is a confidence that comes when you know God is with you. It is not arrogance, it is assurance. It is the calm strength of someone who knows that no matter what happens, God is in control. Walk with that confidence, speak with that authority, move with that expectation. You are not hoping for victory, you are stepping into it. Some people tried to rush the process and missed the purpose, but you stayed. You endured, you trusted, and now God is rewarding your faithfulness. Victory does not always come to the fastest, but it always comes to the faithful. God honors those who honor God. God lifts those who remain humble. God strengthens those who rely on God alone. There are doors opening now that were closed before. There are paths clearing that were blocked before. There is clarity where there was confusion. There is peace where there was anxiety. This is the atmosphere of victory. This is what happens when God moves on your behalf. Do not question it. Do not overanalyze it. Receive it with gratitude and confidence. Even now, God is speaking to your spirit, reminding you of promises you almost forgot. Promises that seemed impossible, promises that looked unrealistic, promises that others laughed at. God never forgot them. God never changed them. God never canceled them. God waited for the right moment, and that moment has arrived. You are not walking into victory alone. OD is walking with you. God goes before you to prepare the way. God stands beside you to strengthen you. God watches over you to protect you. When God is involved, defeat is not an option. Obstacles become stepping stones. Opposition becomes confirmation. Resistance becomes evidence that something powerful is about to happen. There will be people who do not understand your elevation. Let them wonder. There will be people who feel uncomfortable with your growth. Let them adjust. You do not need approval when you have divine alignment. You do not need validation when God has already spoken. Your assignment is not to explain yourself. It is to remain obedient. God is moving your life into alignment with divine purpose. What you are entering now will require greater faith, greater discipline, and greater dependence on God. But you are ready. You have been prepared through hardship, refined through struggle, and strengthened through endurance. The very things that tried to break you have shaped you into someone capable of carrying victory with wisdom and humility. As God lifts you, remember where you came from. Remember the nights you cried. Remember the days you doubted. Remember the moments you almost gave up. Not to dwell there, but to appreciate how far God has brought you. Gratitude keeps victory flowing. Pride stops it. Stay thankful. Stay grounded. Stay faithful. This is not the time to be silent about your faith. This is the time to stand firm. Speak life. Speak confidence. Speak expectation. Words carry power. What you speak consistently, you empower spiritually. Align your words with what God is doing, not with what you fear. You may not see every detail yet, but you do not need to. God does not reveal everything at once. God reveals enough to keep you moving forward. Trust grows when you walk without full sight. Obedience grows when you act without full understanding. Victory grows when you move without hesitation. Right now, chains are breaking. Mental limitations are dissolving. Old fears are losing their grip. You are stepping into a new level of freedom. Freedom to believe bigger. Freedom to dream again. Freedom to expect more. This is what happens when God moves. Do not return to what God delivered you from. Do not reconnect with what God disconnected you from. Old patterns cannot sustain new blessings. Old mindsets cannot manage new favor. God is calling you forward, not backward. Even now, God is opening your eyes to see possibilities you never noticed before. Ideas are forming. Vision is sharpening. Courage is rising. That is not accidental. That is God preparing you to receive and steward victory wisely. There are moments when God does not just answer a prayer, but reshapes the person who prayed it. What you are experiencing now is not merely an outcome, it is a transformation. God is not only giving you victory, God is enlarging your capacity to live in victory. There is a difference. Many receive blessings but remain small in their thinking, fragile in their faith, unstable in their spirit. God has been stretching you so that what is coming will not overwhelm you, but will rest upon you with peace and confidence. This is why the process felt heavy. This is why the road felt long. God was building something inside you that no one could see, but everyone will soon recognize. Understand this deeply. Victory is not always about changing circumstances. Sometimes it is about changing authority. God is shifting authority back into your hands. What once controlled you no longer has permission. What once intimidated you no longer has power. What once silenced you no longer defines you. God is restoring your voice, your confidence, your spiritual strength. You are no longer reacting to life, you are responding with wisdom. That is a sign that God has elevated you internally before elevating you externally. There is a spiritual law at work. What God establishes inwardly will eventually manifest outwardly. Before God changes your environment, God stabilizes your heart. Before God opens doors around you, God opens understanding within you. That is why you can sense calm even before everything is resolved. That peace is not denial, it is alignment. When you are aligned with God, you can stand in the middle of uncertainty without panic because you know God is orchestrating outcomes beyond your sight. Some of you are realizing that the struggle was not just against circumstances, but against identity. The battle tried to convince you that you were weak, forgotten, insignificant, but God has been revealing truth little by little, that you are chosen for impact, entrusted with purpose, designed for influence, not influence that shouts, but influence that shifts atmospheres, not power that dominates, but authority that stabilizes. God entrusts victory to those who will not abuse it. Now hear this. When God moves you into victory, resistance does not always disappear. It changes form. Instead of open opposition, there may be subtle distractions. Instead of loud attacks, there may be quiet temptations to compromise, to rush, to settle. This is where discernment matters. Victory requires vigilance. Stay attentive to God's guidance. What God gives suddenly must be guarded daily. There is a sacred responsibility attached to answered prayers. God expects growth to match blessing. That is why discipline becomes more important than excitement. Consistency becomes more valuable than applause. Obedience becomes more powerful than talent. God is not impressed by speed. God is honored by faithfulness. The victory God gives you is meant to last, not just impress. Some of you are entering a season 2 ere God will trust you with influence over others. People will listen to you differently. They will seek your counsel. They will observe your choices. Remember this, your life is a message even when you are silent. Let your character speak. Let your humility anchor your success. Let gratitude remain your language. God lifts those who remain teachable even at the top. God is also healing areas you learned to live with but were never meant to carry. Emotional wounds that you buried under strength are being gently uncovered and restored. God does not want you victorious but internally fractured. God wants wholeness. Healing is not weakness, it is readiness. When God heals your heart, your future decisions become clearer, wiser, and freer. There is also a shift happening in how you perceive time. You are no longer desperate for instant results because you understand divine timing. You are learning to move with patience without losing urgency, to wait without losing faith. This maturity is itself a victory. Many fail, not because God did not act, but because they could not wait long enough to see what God was preparing. God is also teaching you when to speak and when to remain silent. Not every victory needs announcement. Some victories need protection. What God is growing in you must be guarded from unnecessary exposure. Wisdom knows when to celebrate openly and when to progress quietly. Silence is not weakness when it is guided by God. You are entering a phase where your decisions will carry greater weight. Small choices will produce larger consequences. That is not pressure, that is promotion. God is trusting you with impact. Stay anchored, stay prayerful, stay aware. The higher you go, the deeper your roots must be. Those who fall from success often fail to strengthen their foundation while ascending. There will be moments ahead when people project their expectati onto you. They will want you to move faster, give more, explain yourself, prove yourself. You are not obligated to meet every expectation, only to remain aligned with God. Your assignment is not to satisfy people, but to steward what God has placed in your care. Boundaries protect destiny. God is also reminding you that victory does not mean immunity from challenges. It means authority within challenges. You may still face opposition, but now you face it from a position of strength rather than fear. You may still encounter uncertainty, but now you navigate it with trust rather than panic. This is the difference God makes. Some of you are about to step into unfamiliar territory, new responsibilities, new environments, new expectations. Do not shrink. Unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. God often leads you into spaces that require growth because stagnation cannot sustain destiny. Trust that God's presence goes with you wherever God sends you. Remember this truth: God never calls you without equipping you. If God allowed the opportunity, God has already provided the ability. If God opened the door, God has already prepared the support. Your confidence does not come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing God is with you in everything. There is also a deeper invitation God is extending, not just to receive from God, but to walk with God more intimately. Victory without closeness can become empty. Success without connection can become exhausting. God desires relationship more than results. When you walk closely with God, victory becomes sustainable rather than stressful. Stay sensitive to small instructions. Often the greatest outcomes are tied to simple obedience. Do not overlook the quiet nudges, the gentle redirections, the subtle warnings. God speaks in many ways, and those who listen carefully move steadily. You are becoming someone who carries peace into such chaos, clarity into confusion, hope into heaviness. This is not accidental. God is shaping you to be a stabilizing presence. In a world driven by noise and fear, calm authority stands out. That calm is evidence of trust. As you move forward, remember that gratitude keeps your spirit light. Celebrate progress, not just completion. Honor the journey, not just the destination. Every step forward matters. Every lesson learned matters. Every act of obedience matters. God is still moving. Even when you rest, God works. Even when you pause, God arranges. Even when you sleep, God prepares. Your responsibility is not to control outcomes, but to remain faithful in action. What is unfolding in your life now is larger than you imagine, because God's plans always exceed human expectation. Stay open, stay humble, stay courageous. Let faith guide your decisions, and let trust steady your heart. There is a deeper work God is doing now that goes beyond what you can see or feel. God is recalibrating your inner compass. Where you once moved by urgency, you now move by discernment. Where you once reacted emotionally, you now respond spiritually. This is not accidental growth, this is intentional refinement. God is teaching you to recognize divine timing, to sense when to advance and when to pause. Many miss their victory not because God did not provide it, but because they move without alignment. You are learning alignment, and alignment multiplies power. You must understand that God's movement in your life is not random. It is strategic. Every connection being formed, every door being opened, every door being closed is part of a precise orchestration. God sees the full picture while you see only moments. What feels like an interruption is often a redirection. What feels like an ending is often a transition. Trusting God now requires maturity, not emotion. It requires standing firm even. When reassurance is quiet, God is also breaking old agreements you made with limitation. At one point, you accepted certain outcomes as permanent because you did not see another option. But God never agreed with your limitation. God allowed the process, not the confinement. Now God is expanding your perspective so you can perceive possibilities you were once blind to. Expansion begins in the mind before it appears in life. As your thinking changes, your capacity increases. There is a sacred courage rising within you, a courage that does not shout but stands, a courage that does not need to prove but simply proceeds. This is the courage that comes from knowing God is backing you. When God supports your steps, you do not need to rush or compete. What is meant for you will not pass you by. What God has written for your life does not require force, it requires faith. Some of the pressure you felt was not resistance, but compression. God compresses before God expands, just as pressure forms strength. God has been forming resilience within you. That resilience will allow you to stand steady when others would collapse under the same responsibility. Victory without resilience leads to collapse. God is ensuring sustainability, not just success. There is also a purification happening in your desires. What once appealed to you no longer satisfies you. What once distracted you no longer holds your attention. This is not loss, this is clarity. God is refining your focus so that your energy is not wasted on what cannot fulfill your purpose. Focus is power when guided by God. God is teaching you how to carry authority without harshness, confidence without pride, strength without aggression. This balance is rare and it is valuable. It allows you to influence without intimidation and lead without control. People will feel safe around you, even as they respect you. That is divine. Leadership. Do not underestimate the importance of obedience in small moments. The quiet decisions, the unseen discipline, the private integrity, these are the foundations of public victory. God watches what you do when no one applauds. Faithfulness in secret produces authority in the open. There will be moments when you are tempted to look back at those who wronged you, doubted you, or left you behind. Release them, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. Carrying resentment consumes energy meant for growth. God is lifting you higher, and excess weight cannot go with you. God is also restoring joy to you, not excitement based on outcomes, but joy rooted in trust. This joy does not fluctuate with circumstances. It remains steady even when challenges arise. Joy is a sign of confidence in God's governance. It is quiet proof that you believe God is in control. As your influence grows, so will the need for discernment in relationships. Not everyone who celebrates you is assigned to walk with you. Not everyone who praises you understands your calling. God will help you distinguish between connections that support destiny and connections that simply enjoy proximity. Wisdom will protect you from unnecessary confusion. There is also a call for generosity in this season, not just generosity of resources, but generosity of spirit. Be generous with encouragement, with patience, with understanding. God often flows abundance through those who keep their hearts open rather than guarded. Generosity keeps the channel clear. God is preparing you to operate from overflow rather than exhaustion. You are learning to rest without guilt, to pause without fear. Rest is not retreat, it is renewal. God does some of the deepest work when you stop striving and allow trust to take its place. The victory unfolding in your life will challenge you to maintain humility. Humility does not deny strength, it acknowledges the source. When you remain aware that God is the foundation of your progress, gratitude remains natural, and pride finds no place to grow. You are also learning that not every battle requires confrontation. Some victories come through restraint. Silence can be a strategy. Distance can be protection. God will show you when to speak and when to let outcomes speak for you. God's movement in your life is also awakening responsibility toward others. You will find yourself more aware of the impact of your words and actions. This awareness is a gift. It sharpens wisdom and deepens compassion. Influence guided by compassion builds lasting legacy. There will be days ahead when progress feels slow again. Do not panic. Growth is not linear. God works in rhythms and seasons. What matters is consistency, not speed. Stay steady, stay aligned. Momentum will return. God is also strengthening your ability to trust without control. Control is rooted in fear. Trust is rooted in faith. As you release the need to manage every outcome, peace increases. Peace is a sign that trust is taking root. Your story is becoming layered, rich with lessons that cannot be learned quickly. One day, you will look back and realize that the waiting protected you, the struggle refined you, and the silence taught you to listen. Nothing was wasted. As you continue forward, remember that God's guidance is not always loud, but it is always consistent. Pay attention to patterns, to repeated confirmations, to the steady sense of direction. God is faithful to guide those who are willing to follow. This victory is not fragile. It is grounded. It is supported by discipline, strengthened by faith, sustained by obedience. Walk forward without fear of losing it. What God establishes, God preserves. And as each step unfolds, let your heart remain anchored in trust, yo. Our mind steady in truth, your spirit open in humility, because God is not finished. God is not slowing down. God is not withdrawing. God is continuing to move, to shape, to guide, to elevate, to refine, and to lead you forward into deeper purpose, greater clarity, stronger faith, and a victory that continues to expand, mature, and unfold under the watchful power and perfect wisdom of God alone. There is another dimension God is opening to you now, and it is the dimension of stewardship. Victory is not only something to celebrate, it is something to manage. God watches closely what you do after the breakthrough. Many pray for change, but you prepare for responsibility. God is training you to handle increase with wisdom, not impulse. What God places in your hands must first be settled in your heart. When your heart is stable, your hands will not misuse what God entrusts to you. You are also being taught the power of restraint after triumph. It is easy to relax discipline once pressure lifts, but God is calling you to deepen discipline, not abandon it. Consistency after victory is proof of maturity. God is not impressed by how strongly you start. God is honored by how faithfully you continue. The habits you maintain now will determine the longevity of what God has released. There will be moments when the excitement fades and routine returns. Do not misinterpret that as decline. Routine is where strength is built. Routine is where faith is proven. God does not dwell only in moments of intensity. God is present in daily obedience. Those who learn to honor God in ordinary moments carry extraordinary authority over time. God is also revealing to you that not every test comes before victory. Some tests come after. After increase, humility is tested. After influence, integrity is tested. After recognition, obedience is tested. These tests are subtle, but they are critical. Passing them keeps the flow of God's favor steady and unhindered. There is a sharpening happening in your discernment. You are becoming quicker to sense what aligns with God and what subtly pulls you away. This sensitivity is protection. God does not want you distracted by things that look good but lead nowhere. Direction matters more than opportunity. Not every open door is meant to be entered. God will teach you to recognize the difference. You are also stepping into a deeper understanding of trust. Trust does not mean everything will be easy. It means you will not be shaken when things are unclear. God is strengthening your ability to remain anchored when answers are delayed. That steadiness is rare and it is powerful. It allows God to work without interruption. God is also awakening compassion within you, not the kind that weakens boundaries, but the kind that understands pain without absorbing it. You are learning to care without carrying, to support without sacrificing your assignment. This balance protects your energy and preserves your purpose. As your awareness grows, you will notice how God uses quiet moments to speak deeply. Stillness will become valuable to you. In stillness, clarity forms. In stillness, direction sharpens. Noise confuses, but stillness aligns. God often whispers wisdom that changes everything. You are also learning that gratitude is not just a response to blessing, it is a posture that attracts it. Gratitude keeps your spirit open. It prevents entitlement. It keeps joy alive even when circumstances fluctuate. God delights in hearts that remain thankful not only when prayers are answered, but while they are still unfolding. There will be seasons when you feel called to give more than you receive. Do not resist that season. Giving stretches capacity. Giving builds trust. God often uses generosity to prepare you for greater responsibility. What flows through you can increase. What stops with you stagnates. God is also reminding you that rest is sacred. Not escape, not laziness, but intentional renewal. Rest recalibrates your spirit. It keeps your vision clear. It prevents burnout disguised as dedication. God does not ask you to prove your worth through exhaustion. God values obedience over overextension. As you continue walking forward, you will notice that fear tries to return in quieter forms. Hesitation, overthinking, self-doubt. Recognize it for what it is and refuse agreement. Fear only has power when it is entertained. Faith grows when fear is denied permission. God is also shaping your language. Words matter more now. What you speak carries weight. Speak truth even when emotion disagrees. Speak confidence even when outcomes are not visible. Words aligned with faith reinforce direction. God responds to words that agree with divine intention. You will encounter moments when letting go is required again. letting go of expectations, timelines, even familiar successes. God sometimes asks for release not because something is wrong, but because something greater requires space. Trusting God includes trusting what God removes as much as what God provides. There is also a strengthening of endurance taking place. Not endurance to survive, but endurance to remain effective over time. God is preparing you not just for a season, but for a journey. Quick victories impress people, but sustained faithfulness honors God. You are becoming more aware that your life is being used to encourage others silently. People are watching how you carry pressure, how you respond to delay, how you remain grounded in success. Your examples speak. God uses lived faith to restore hope in others. God is also inviting you to deepen humility, not self-diminishing, but God-centered awareness. Humility keeps you teachable. It keeps correction welcome. It keeps growth continuous. Those who remain humble never stop learning, and those who keep learning never stop growing. There will be times when you feel misunderstood. Do not rush to correct perception. Time reveals truth. Consistency clarifies intention. God defends those who remain aligned. You do not need to fight every misunderstanding. God will vindicate through outcome. God is steadily anchoring you in purpose rather than approval. Approval shifts, but purpose remains. When your identity is rooted in God's assignment rather than external validation, stability follows. You become unmovable. You are also learning to recognize when to move forward boldly and when to wait quietly. This discernment prevents regret. It protects timing. God's pace may feel slower than urgency, but it is always faster than repair. As you continue, let faith remain active, not emotional. Let trust remain steady, not conditional. Let obedience remain consistent, not selective. These are the qualities that sustain what God is building. And so you keep walking, aware, grounded, attentive, not striving, not forcing, not retreating, knowing that God is still arranging details you cannot see, still strengthening foundations you do not feel, still guiding steps that will make sense later, still unfolding victory layer by layer, moment by moment, under the authority, wisdom, and perfect will of God alone.